Throughout the last 5 years, gacha games have seen a significant rise in fame. They were once an extremely niche genre, being simple mobile games based on pulling anime-style characters. Over time, however, the genre has exploded in popularity, with a massive increase in quality, leading to additional interest towards a unique format. This consequently has brought criticism due to its predatory nature, but there's no denying people's enthusiasm concerning these games. So, let's look into how a genre that's perceived as gambling for cute anime girls became a global phenomenon. Before we can understand the rise, we need to start at the beginning, the origin of gacha games. Back in 1965 in Japan, a machine called Gachapon was invented by a person named Ryuzo Shigeta. He received inspiration from a business partner in America, as the vending machine that he displayed to him dispensed candy and toys at random. Eventually, he created the first Gachapon machine that distributes toys randomly, heavily resembling the features seen in the US. The term Gachapon is an onomatopoeia that imitates the sounds of the full experience of utilizing these machines. More companies over time started incorporating similar machines across Japan. In particular, Bandai Namco immensely helped in popularizing them, as it created its own brand titled Gachapon. During the 1980s, a variety of toys based on popular media in Japan, such as anime and games, became available to acquire. Due to their entertaining premise and general positive reception, they started to appear everywhere in Japan, including arcades, malls, and even train stations. From there, it kept growing, and is still something people play today. Now, you're presumably wondering how this all relates to gacha games. Well, mechanics mirroring the gachapon or features commonly seen in current gachas started being implemented into games in the 2000s. One game that was available that's well known is MapleStory. Here, a player used in-game currency or real money to receive an item at random. The item varied from appearance-based to increasing attack power through powerful weapons. Moreover, trading card games grew in popularity during this time, with cards featuring aesthetically pleasing art and varied functions dominated the market due to their complexity. The most notable franchises were Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, both of which capitalized on the same randomized draw system found in Gachapon. People would purchase packs, hoping to pull the rarest cards available. If they were unlucky, they'd have to keep buying more packs for another chance. This entire system was inspired by Gachapon machines, some of which even offered trading card packs themselves. Despite sharing similar mechanics, the first true gacha game didn't emerge until 2010, with Dragon Collection, a mobile title developed by Konami and released in Japan. What set it apart and why it's considered the first official gacha game was how deeply the gacha mechanic was woven into its core gameplay. Unlike earlier games where random draw elements were merely optional, Dragon Collection made the gacha system central to the player experience, matching the gacha games we see today. Moreover, it had a primary premium currency, also being a staple of modern gachas. Called Dragon Coins, this currency was consumed to attain dragons or purchase in-game items. Furthermore, the game introduced limited time events, one of the most crucial aspects of modern gachas, designed to keep players engaged and spending money. These events often feature exclusive cards, creating a sense of urgency and fear of missing out. These features are persistent nowadays, but back in the 2010s, mobile games hadn't yet embraced extensive microtransactions or content updates. The mobile market was still commanded by one-time purchase games and ad-supported titles, namely Doodle Jump, Fruit Ninja, and Temple Run. This game, however, laid the groundwork for the gacha systems that would later become widespread, by including numerous insightful tactics. The game itself was relatively simple, as it was developed in 2010 when mobile hardware was limited. Both the animations and dragon designs were fairly basic, yet it still managed to generate significant revenue for Konami. In addition to possessing millions of registered players, this further highlights the substantial impact it had on the industry, being extremely successful before being discontinued. Another influential title that followed was Dokkan Battle, released in 2015. Based on one of the most captivating franchises of all time, Dokkan had an inherent advantage in attracting players. Its connection to such an iconic series made it easier to generate excitement, as fans were already familiar with and eager to summon for well-known characters. In contrast, original IPs must rely more heavily on character design, meta relevance, and an intriguing narrative to create the same level of anticipation. It played a major role in establishing the trend of adapting anime franchises into gacha games. While Dragon Ball undoubtedly contributed to its success, Dokkan Battle also stood out due to its high level of polish compared to many other mobile titles. The animations were fluid, and faithfully representing the characters from the series, making it an appealing experience for players. Even today, Dokkan remains a dominant force in the gacha market, with the global and Japanese servers recently emerging, as well as celebrating the game's 10th anniversary. It shows no signs of slowing down, consistently ranking among the highest grossing gacha games during anniversary events. It served as an introduction to the gacha genre for many players, helping normalize its mechanics. And because it's Dragon Ball, it avoided much of the controversy surrounding gacha monetization, as people wanted to collect and play as their favorite characters regardless. Another game that contributed to the rise of gacha games was Fate Grand Order, which launched just 6 months after Dokkan in 2015. Similar to Dokkan, it was based on an existing and popular franchise, in this case, Fate, which helped ensure a built-in audience from the start. Fate Grand Order aligns more closely with traditional gacha mechanics, featuring a complex UI, a wide variety of summonable characters, servants, the evolving story, and layer systems that could be overwhelming to newcomers. Speaking personally, as someone who hasn't played it, it seems extremely confusing. I think I'll stick to a more straightforward turn-based game like Star Rail, a game that just happens to be featuring Fate characters as well soon. Nevertheless, Fate is still highly regarded for its engaging story, limiting power creep, and creative servant designs. Fate remains active to this day, demonstrating that gacha games can sustain long-term success as they maintain a healthy player base. This enduring relevance is one of the core reasons why the gacha genre continues to grow. Despite its age, Fate still generates substantial revenue, and similar to Dokkan, it constantly ranks among the top grossing titles, especially during its anniversary event. For many, it served as the first introduction to gacha games, making it a pivotal title in the genre's history. Given its lasting influence and dedicated community, it is likely to remain a relevant force in the gacha space for years to come. Another important shift worth highlighting is how mobile games as a whole began to evolve during this time. Around the mid-2010s, the mobile market started leaning heavily towards free-to-play models, supported by microtransactions. Instead of paying up front, players could download games for free and spend money on in-game currency or perks. This trend is clearly reflected in the highest downloaded mobile game of 2016, Pokemon Go. It took the world by storm thanks to its interactive gameplay and strong sense of community, pulling in an astonishing $500 million within its first 2 months. The game's currency, Pokecoins, let players buy helpful consumables to support their gym battles and exploration. Another prime example is Clash Royale, which also ranked among the top grossing titles. It utilized a similar system, where gems could be spent on chests, offering massive advantages to spenders in competitive battles. The days of simply paying a couple dollars for a full game or dealing with a few ads were quickly fading, replacing them with a free-to-play model with integrated microtransactions, fully set to become the new standard, as it allowed the mobile gaming market to reach unprecedented levels of revenue. In 2010, mobile games generated approximately $6 billion, but by 2016, that number skyrocketed to $41 billion, nearly a 7 times increase in just 6 years. This surge not only reflected the adjustment in consumer behavior, but also positioned mobile games ahead of both console and PC markets in terms of earnings. In this new landscape, the monetization strategies used in gacha games didn't seem drastically more aggressive than the ones found in most other mobile titles. They simply became a more refined version of what was already working. Not only was it a transformation in how mobile games were structured, but there was also a significant rise in the acceptance and popularity of anime worldwide. Prior to the late 2010s, alongside this decade, anime often carried a negative stigma. However, with the emergence of highly successful modern titles like Demon Slayer, Chainsaw Man, and My Hero Academia, in combination with increased marketing efforts, anime started to break into the mainstream. It became more visible in everyday media, and people grew more comfortable embracing it rather than treating it as a niche or odd interest. The popularity of anime everywhere has grown, accumulating $21 billion, in addition to foreign markets surpassing Japan. This surge not only benefits the anime industry by exposing new audiences to standout series, but also creates more opportunities for gacha games. With more anime gaining widespread popularity, developers have a broader selection of franchises to adapt, bringing gacha mechanics to fans through their favorite series. Additionally, the anime-inspired art style of many gacha games became more appealing as anime itself grew in popularity. As more people started watching anime, higher amounts of people were naturally drawn to gacha titles that share that aesthetic. This growing interest also encouraged developers to release their games globally, rather than limiting them to Japanese or Chinese audiences. In turn, this broader accessibility contributed to the genre's expansion. While anime is far from the sole reason behind the rise of gacha games, it certainly played a notable role in their growth. Following Fate Grand Order's release, it rose alongside other gacha games. In fact, its revenue was only $646 million across a year-and-a-half period. Then it increased rapidly, making $982 million in 2017 alone. Finally, it rose by another $300 million, grossing $1.2 billion and becoming the third highest grossing mobile game worldwide. Notably, 10% of this revenue came from outside Japan, which isn't necessarily a significant segment, although it at least showcased some growth. These increases in revenue and app downloads were beneficial to the genre, but overall, they weren't enough to push gacha games fully into the mainstream. It definitely started to gain more traction, however, with new and exciting games demonstrating high levels of polish. For instance, Honkai Impact III, Epic 7, and Azure Lane all brought additional players to the genre, and their respective fan bases remain highly enthusiastic even today. These newer games deviated from the majority of popular gachas, as they didn't just rely on familiar anime IPs. They introduced entirely new universes with intriguing and complex systems, innovative gameplay, art direction, and storytelling. In particular, Honkai Impact was 3D with amazing graphics, perfectly coinciding with the animations of various character abilities. Moreover, the gameplay mechanics allowed for fluid combat, altogether creating an aesthetically pleasing and enjoyable experience. This reflects the expected quality of gachas released recently, highlighting how the bar was frequently being raised throughout the last decade by higher amounts of effort. Finally, the rise in community engagement through social media, such as YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter, were vital to additional people discovering the genre. Despite the nicheness during this period, players persistently engaged in discussions concerning gameplay strategies and which character to gamble away the life savings on. Specifically, Fate became the most tweeted game in 2018, surpassing Fortnite during its peak and sharing the top 3 with Monster Strike, another extremely popular gacha. Altogether, 4 of the most tweeted games were surprisingly gachas, rivaling a multitude of well-known franchises. Fate maintained this position in 2019, and its positive trend remains consistent in recent years on multiple platforms, despite the communities becoming moderately toxic. These essential factors that are already drawing a plethora of people into the genre will soon be amplified. During E3 2019, Genshin Impact was officially revealed. A trailer, along with a brief gameplay snippet, was shown, and it immediately caught people's attention. The game featured an open world with a vibrant, anime-inspired art style similar to Breath of the Wild, a title widely praised for its breathtaking visuals and environmental design. It was clear from the beginning that Genshin was aiming higher than the average gacha game. It's insane that 6 years have already passed. I remember watching this aesthetically pleasing trailer and being amazed at how it looked. I quickly decided I was going to play it upon release. Now 6 years later, I'm down a whole lot of hours. It was the first of its kind, as it was an open world gacha with a staggering $100 million budget, which is exceptional for any game, let alone one in the gacha space. The hype surrounding Genshin was massive, fueled by its ambitious scope and stunning presentation. Eventually, it was announced for release on September 28, 2020, and when it launched, it took the world by storm. You get it? Storm? Because the dragon titled Storm Terror, the first boss you defeat in the game? Alright, maybe that's a reach. Anyways, fast forward to release day, Genshin had already accumulated over 10 million pre-registrations, making it one of the most pre-registered games of all time. Nowadays, it's not as impressive due to the anticipated gacha titles, such as Wuthering Waves and Zenless Soul Zero, amassing 3 to 4 times that number. But that only highlights the significant amount the gacha genre has grown since. It's notable to mention that the release date was perfect, being during quarantine where everyone was stuck at home, in desperate need of an entertaining escape. This magical fantasy world with an attractive atmosphere and overall calm gameplay structure synergized well with that necessity. Following its launch, Genshin instantly became one of the most popular titles on the market, swiftly building a massive community. Remember how we discussed that gacha games frequently rank among the most tweeted about games? Genshin was no exception. Despite only being live for the final 3 months of 2020, it still ranked as the 8th most tweeted game that year. By the following year, it had taken the #1 spot. While the community typically isn't the most positive, it's undeniably vocal, and that high level of engagement only fueled its popularity. Supplementing the hype, a story preview trailer was released, outlining a roadmap with new characters and regions, providing players an incentive to remain playing. At its core, Genshin was still a gacha game. The common predatory tactics of premium currency and characters only being available to acquire at certain times were consistent. Moreover, it still expected the player base to log in every day to obtain powerful equipment pieces and complete a set of daily quests for crucial rewards. However, it differed because it executed the actual gameplay on a AAA scale. It launched with a substantial base game and kept players engaged through frequent updates. The characters were full of personality, and the designs only improved as new regions were introduced. That variety and charm were a major role in what drove its revenue and the absolute accession of the community. The regions themselves also grew in size and complexity over time, enhancing the world's immersion. These atmospheres were accompanied with harmonious music that sounded amazing. The entire soundtrack is routinely applauded, as people sometimes refer to Horrorverse as a music company. The game's focus on PvE over PvP was another strong point. With no pressure to compete, players could progress at their own pace, something that really appealed to casual audiences, especially those on mobile. Furthermore, the game was available on PC, mobile, and PlayStation, offering flexibility depending on how you want to experience it. While that kind of cross-platform availability is relatively ordinary now, at that time, mobile-focused gacha games predominantly required an emulator to play on PC. Genshin helped normalize and popularize this approach in a big way, which truly brought already great-looking games to life with better performance. To truly understand Genshin's influence on the gacha genre, we also need to acknowledge how it significantly broadened the audience for these types of games. Personally, I was only familiar with gacha titles based on anime previous to Genshin's launch, such as Dragon Ball Legends and One Piece Bounty Rush. However, Genshin altered my perception, resulting in me realizing the vast amounts of intriguing games that possess an original universe. For instance, I began playing Punisher Grey Raven in 2022 because I was interested in a similar style. I quickly realized it was a hidden gem. I remained actively invested into the game years later. This sentiment is clearly reflected in the entire community, as new people, in addition to casual players, became fascinated with the genre. As a result, numerous Genshin enthusiasts transitioned to other silent gacha titles upon their respective launches. Additionally, its success sent a clear message to developers. High-quality gacha games with compelling stories, polished visuals, and rich gameplay had the capability to become well-known. The era of simple gacha titles with chibi-style characters and minimal content began to fade, replaced by more ambitious projects striving for depth and lasting allure. Besides encouraging newer gacha games to provide better gameplay rather than relying solely on the summoning mechanics, Genshin also influenced a notable shift in how gacha systems themselves were designed. This evolution made the genre more approachable for newer players, as it spared them from the overly predatory mechanics that had long defined earlier titles. Genshin's wishes system was distinctive, as the game implemented a 50-50 mechanic. So, if players pulled a 5-star character, there was a 50% chance it would be the limited character featured in the banner. If they lost that 50-50 and received a standard 5-star instead, the next 5-star was guaranteed to be the limited one. This safety net meant that, given adequate amount of pulls, all players will eventually receive the character they were aiming for. While the base rate of 0.6% for 5 stars was low, the existence of a guarantee system was amazing. At the time, this was a major improvement, and although the system has become more controversial in recent years, it's important to acknowledge what it was pushing back against. The vast majority of earlier gacha games lacked any sort of pity system. Players had to summon endlessly with no guarantee of obtaining the unit they desired. Drop rates rarely exceeded 5%, and even players who spent large amounts of money could walk away with nothing. Personally, I remember playing Dragon Ball Legends and being disappointed when the currency I grinded for hours was wasted, as I failed to acquire the character. When Genshin was released, I was surprised to read that pulls carried over and contributed to an overall progress to something guaranteed. That alone made a massive difference. Considering Genshin's success, pity systems became nearly universal. The majority of modern gacha games not only include them, but some even allow players to guarantee a future unit after reaching the page threshold just once. Genshin transformed a once scarce and luxurious feature into being mandatory, highlighting its revolutionary effect across all areas. After Genshin launch, numerous gacha games were released or announced that would go on to generate significant revenue. Nevertheless, Genshin was far from finished. In an era where many live service games struggled to maintain relevance, often shutting down within a year, Genshin proved to be an anomaly. What truly set it apart was the consistency and scale of the post-launch content. No games were even close to matching this ridiculous output. Throughout its first year, Genshin delivered major updates and expansions, including Dragon Spine, the Golden Apple Archipelago, and the introduction of a new region just 10 months after release. These additions underscored how Genshin distinguished itself not only from other gacha games, but from live service games in general. Its continued success helped cement it at the face of gacha games and anime-inspired titles as a whole. In addition to Genshin's innovation, an important trend worth highlighting is the declining reputation for anime games. Traditionally, these games were enjoyable experiences that let players take control of their favorite characters, relive major story arcs, or battle others online. They typically sold well, especially when tied to well-known franchises like Naruto or Dragon Ball, as the nature of the series alone could easily attract a large player base. As previously discussed, anime saw a massive surge in mainstream engagement during the late 2010s and early 2020. With this newly increased presence, additional developers jumped at the opportunity to produce anime games, with a portion choosing the gacha route, while others focused on console and PC releases. It's straightforward to see how gachas based on anime franchises helped to bring attention to the genre. These games didn't need to build a new fan base from scratch, because having an established IP meant there was already an audience. That appeal still holds strong today, with 4 of the 10 highest grossing gacha games in March appertaining to anime. And while people generally expect less from mobile gacha games, there's still a noticeable sense of disappointment when a new title based on a beloved series ends up being just another gacha, which gradually harms the overall perception of anime games. Console and PC anime games have been much better. Since anime's rise, numerous of these titles have received poor reception. For instance, Jump Force, one of the biggest anime games to launch in 2019, right at the height of anime's growing popularity. Despite its stacked cast consisting of a multitude of iconic characters, the game encountered widespread criticism and holds a horrendous 56 score on Metacritic. It was disliked for its repetitive gameplay and lack of identity. And though it released several DLCs, in addition to possessing decent sale numbers, it was eventually delisted from all platforms just 3 years later. Even in 2024, the trend continued. Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Clash, based off the popular New Gen series, followed the same disappointing path. It received over 1,300 negative reviews on Steam out of 3,500 total, and holds an abysmal 44 Metacritic score, with copious amounts of people deciding to refund the game. The game was priced at $60, yet it was criticized for offering a poor retelling of the anime story and ironically featuring outdated graphics. The visuals is frequently one of the few strengths of anime-based games, so not having this aspect only further contributed to its low quality. Despite receiving several updates aimed at improving its shortcomings, the game quickly became forgotten about. In consequence to these titles and the ones with similar problems, many anime games today feel like rushed cash grabs. But this actually works in favor of gacha games. Fans still desire engaging anime-style experiences, and when console or PC titles fall short, they turn to popular gachas, sometimes based on their favorite series, to fill that void. These games offer the anime aesthetic they enjoy, while simultaneously having higher production values, comprehensible gameplay mechanics that are simple to become accustomed to, frequent updates, and larger budgets than the average anime game. Most importantly, they are free-to-play mobile games, something that makes their quality and consistent content even more appealing by comparison. The next massive game that held Gacha's prominence was Horibus' following title, called Honkai Star Rail. Announced in 2021 during the height of Genshin's popularity, the game garnered immediate attention. In contrast to Genshin's open world format, Star Rail took a more traditional turn-based approach, correlating with standard gacha games. However, it still showcased Horibus' quality standard, with high-end visuals and impressive character designs that highlighted what players had come to expect from Genshin. Despite not being open world, the game offered multiple planets to explore, each with distinct areas, providing a strong sense of scale and variety. Considering it utilizes horror versus aesthetic, in addition to being ambitious, it amassed 23 million pre-registration, doubling Genshin's already asserted amount, further solidifying expectations for its success. Upon release, it quickly gained traction. While similarities to both Genshin and other turn-based titles were apparent, the fully voice-acted story stood out, especially given that many Gacha titles lack this due to cost. The character and boss animations, particularly the ultimate abilities, were outlandish. It demonstrated the substantial effort invested. This effort proved beneficial to the game, as StarRail consistently ranks among the top 5 highest grossing Gacha games, and at times even surpasses Genshin in revenue. Within the span of 5 months, it had already generated over $1 billion. While it may not have reached the same level of cultural impact as Genshin, especially outside of the Gacha community, its reception was highly positive for the majority of its lifespan. In fact, compared to many other Gachas, and even Genshin itself, StarRail built a stronger reputation, with significantly less criticism. Unfortunately, with the recent updates, that has diminished, but it still has an extremely dedicated player base. Wuthering Waves is the next major game, releasing in May 2024. First announced in 2022, the game generated early excitement thanks to its promising gameplay. While it shares similarities with Genshin as an open-world gacha, it distinguishes itself with a more post-apocalyptic color palette and tone. This difference made the game even more favorable to people looking for something new. The early beta tests revealed some flaws, such as a slow and unengaging story. It conversely highlighted positive aspects, like fast-paced and highly enjoyable content that helped it feel distinct from Genshin. Anticipation steadily built as the game received an earlier than expected release date in May, and ultimately accumulated an impressive 30 million pre-registrations, almost the same as Genshin and StarRail combined. However, upon launch, the game encountered several performance issues. The most prominent problem was poor optimization on all platforms, as frequent stuttering occurred. Mobile performance was the most inconsistent, which was disappointing compared to Genshin, a game known for its smooth performance across platforms. Additional issues included dialogue bugs, frequent connection errors that interrupted gameplay, and background music failing to play at certain scenes. Despite launching in a rough state, which corresponded to launch problems commonly seen in big releases, the developer, Kura Games, acted quickly to resolve these concerns. In a few patches, the game ran much more smoothly, with the performance and technical issues swiftly being addressed. The story, while initially slow, improved over time, and by version 2, is considered compelling by the community. Combat remains one of its strongest aspects, offering a faster pace and more fluid rotations compared to most games, with dynamic intro skills and stunning liberation animations, contributing to a highly satisfying gameplay loop. Exploration is another area where Wuthering Waves excels. Players can scale walls, use a grappling hook, and in the newest region Arena Sita, utilize wing equipment to swiftly navigate its environment. The game provides an distinct enough experience to stand on its own, and has shown strong signs of longevity, having maintained a solid player base post-launch, rather than fading quickly. Gacha games generally become better over time, adding complexity to areas, refining animations, and expanding features. Wuthering Waves is clearly no exception, taking into account its improvement every patch. It generated $110 million in its first month, and continues to rank among the top grossing Gacha titles, only trailing behind well-established franchises. As such, Wuthering Waves has solidified itself as another Gacha game that captured widespread attention through its quality and innovation. It stands with Genshin, StarRail, and Zenless Zone Zero as extensive titles that are discussed concerning the new updates. Altogether, they serve as amazing entry titles for beginners, primarily focusing on storytelling and intriguing gameplay mechanics. Their influence on Gacha's mainstream popularity is undeniable, and most Gacha players consistently play at least one, or maybe even all. As the 2025 discourse surrounding the Gacha genre has grown increasingly pessimistic. According to Sensor Tower reports, it has noted a steady decline in revenue across top-performing Gacha titles. In fact, 30 of the top 50 highest-grossing Gacha games experienced a revenue drop from February to March, suggesting a decrease in overall player spending and engagement. This downturn has prompted several YouTubers and streamers to voice their concerns, with some of the community going as far to claim the genre is in a disastrous state. However, these sentiments are often exaggerated when compared to the state and outlook of the genre. The revenue decline can largely be attributed to oversaturation, as a surge of developers has sought to raise the quality of their games in response to the overwhelming success of titles like Genshin and stardom. The days of only a handful of high-quality gacha games dominating the market are over. And as more competitive titles emerge, player spending has naturally become more dispersed. In some ways, this abundance is beneficial, as it compels developers to invest more in content and game quality. In addition to market saturation, more players are opting to experience these high-quality games on PC and console platforms, which are not included in Sensor Tower revenue metrics. While mobile still accounts for the majority of the player base, particularly in regions like Japan and China, where mobile gaming is dominant and whaling is more prevalent. This shift in platform usage suggests that the reported revenue may not show the genre's current reach. Furthermore, creative new titles have been released recently, with more on the horizon. For example, Love and Deep Space launched last year and quickly gained popularity by addressing the genre's lack of male characters. Pokemon TCG Pocket is another big title, blending gacha mechanics with a massively popular Pokemon brand to achieve immediate success. Its bigger audience guarantees a continued strong performance. Looking ahead, several highly anticipated titles are expected to create interest in the genre. For instance, Arknight's Enfield, based on the already successful Arknight's universe, expands its tactical tower defense routes into a 3D open-world experience, offering turret placement, synchronizing with player attacks. Similarly, Azure Premilia, an open-world title from the creators of Azure Lane, showcases a unique art style and features mechanics such as multiple pets and a combat system built around counters and companion coordination. Therefore, despite the criticism of the genre, gachas are constantly reaching new heights. According to numerous sources, the market is still expected to grow, and these ambitious games will continue to be advertised to new audiences. To wrap this all up, the earliest gacha games began as a largely monotonous experience, characterized by simplistic gameplay loops and highly frustrated gacha systems. Over time, however, titles such as Fate Grand Order and Honkai Impact III began setting new standards throughout the mid-2010s. Their consistent updates, compelling narratives, and refined mechanics gradually boosted the genre's popularity, drawing people into their intriguing universes. Simultaneously, anime and inspired games were growing in global popularity, familiarizing a broader audience with the artistic appeal and storytelling style that many gacha games would adopt. The decade finished strong with the release of Arknights, as well as continued support for already great titles. Then came the launch of Genshin, a pivotal moment that elevated the gacha genre's mainstream appeal. Its impact cannot be overstated, introducing millions of players to a new standard of quality, combining expansive open-world exploration, accessibility, polished visuals, and a more consumer-friendly gacha system. Genshin proved that gacha games could achieve commercial success, and set the stage for future titles to follow. As a result of these developments, the gacha genre experienced a rapid surge in popularity. What was once a niche category now encompasses a wide range of high-quality titles, and it's exciting to see these games completely take off. The future is extremely bright, and with their growing popularity, it will be interesting to see the number of games incorporating gacha features. It seems there will always be a new game to indulge in, offering excellent storytelling, beautiful graphics, a multitude of progression systems, different combat rotations, and of course, the thrill of gambling for new characters. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.